Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for December 19th, 2025. I'm Benjy Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating, and Ralph Kohler is also present. There was recently a couple of reviews on this issue. It's number 3370326, Refine Labels and Descriptions for Field Types. So just for the sake of the recording, I will run through how to get there. This is a fresh install of Drupal with the Umami demo profile. If you go to content types, and excuse me while I get the Zoom window out of the way, manage fields for any content type, and create new field. We've rewritten a little bit of the text on this page, but mostly on the pages you get to as you click through this modal. So for example, add field or reference field, content, taxonomy, term, user, and other. All of this text is new in this field. So as I said, we've recently gotten a couple of reviews on the merge request. And I think at this point there are 12 open threads on the merge request. A few of the suggestions I think we'll want to take. Some of them we'll want to debate. But let me see. So this is the merge request related to the issue. If I go to, does this go to the first open thread? So this comment was just a suggestion of rewriting a few lines that wouldn't have any effect. It's only a question of which bit of code is clearer. A couple of months ago, I wrote that I prefer my version to the suggestion, but if the reviewer insists, I would change it. And although DWW, Derek Wright, re-reviewed this just yesterday or the day before, he left this one alone, but I don't think that we need to discuss that as part of this meeting. I'm willing to do it his way if he insists. The next one is about list string items. So let me see if I can find that in the user interface. I believe
Selection
it's,
list. Two down in
thank you.
selection list.
Yeah, so this example, um, we suggested label most with the database value string 0.9, half with the string 0.5, and some with the string 0.3. And Derek, skipping past the older comments, the recent comment, he agrees that adding in the quotes helped, which we're missing earlier. And he suggests an example using aspect ratios, portrait, square, and landscape. And the database values would be the strings giving the aspect ratios 1 to 2, 1 to 1, and 4 to 3. So what do you think? Should we add that as a second example? Shall we replace our current example? Should we leave it as it is?
Um, just one question. Looking at the example we came up with and looking at Derek's, would Derek's also require single quotes?
I think we would want to put them in for consistency, especially if we give both examples.
Okay.
Um, I guess the first example we gave, apple, mango, and black cherry, we did not put in quotes. So we only put in the quotes because we wanted to emphasize that these were strings and not integers. And maybe for consistency, if we are going to have these two examples, maybe for consistency, we should add quotes to the first example.
Yeah. Um, per se, I think the example we have with 0.9 and that it is treated as a string and not a number, I consider more educational. But the example Derek gave is closer to what someone would run into the Drupal interface in other contexts, for example, in media. So, but still, we have a point with the using a number here, and it was and with a is it colon? I always mix it up.
Yes, a colon.
Colon, yeah. Then it's still different that way and could be easier considered and recognized as a string already.
Let's see if I can insert this using browser tools. To insert another list. And then see, does that do it? So then I also suggested that if we're going to use quotes in one of the examples, we should use quotes in all of them.
Yeah.
So despite the dictum that less is more, I also think that it's always a good idea to have an extra example. I don't have a problem. I don't think that three examples is too many.
Yeah, the only thing it's slightly more uneven in regards of the number of examples between text and integer that way. Before it was 2 to 1, now it's 3 to 1, but yeah, text requires more examples, so should be fine.
And the examples sort of serve a purpose, like, oh, I wish I could use uh, decimal numbers or floating numbers as my keys, and I can't. But oh, this example shows me that, of course, I can use the string 0.9 instead of the float 0.9. So that
Yeah,
works.
agreed.
Um, okay,
Yeah.
so, so that's one. Um, And next open thread. There are a total of 12 open threads. A few of them are related. Um, and this was the question about date time. Let me look at that in C2. Oh, and actually, before I do that, I'm going to enable the date time range module.
Yeah.
That in my terminal window, which I'm not sharing.
And one note, that string, Laurie also commented on.
Right. And it's this sentence here. All field types can be displayed in various ways using the Manage Display tab. Um, Derek left this thread open without a further reply. In his initial review, he said the second sentence is true of all fields, not just date time, which of course is correct. And we want this here. And I explained that we did that because one of the two options is described as a human readable string format. Let's see that in context. Yeah, right here. Human readable string format. He felt it was important to reassure new users that they still have control over the output. There were two attendees at the meeting. This was back in October. There were two attendees at the meeting who had not previously looked at this issue, and they agreed enthusiastically. So I think I'm still happy with that reply. Um, and I think the reason Derek left this open is because Lowry, the other reviewer, also commented on this.
Yep.
Um, so let's go on to the next one.
Or maybe we should go to Laurie's. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as I go through all of them, I'll certainly get to
Yeah, so
Lowry's.
I just thought jump to the one in the context we're currently in.
Okay, I can do that. So is this it?
Mm, no. Yeah, that is it.
So Larry made pretty much the same comment that Derek had already made. I would admit manage display here just to be more compatible with contrib solutions. Um, I'm not sure what he means about being compatible with contrib solutions. Are
Yeah.
there are there contrib fields that can't be displayed in various ways that don't have any options for display? And Derek agrees that he's not sure we need that sentence, but he also refers to the previous discussion, the one we were just looking at.
Yep.
Um, I I still think that we had four or five people in the October 10th meeting, and I'm inclined to go with that consensus. Um,
And there's also the point, and the reason why we included it here was to also to provide some pointers and follow-up actions for people not that familiar with the interface yet. what to do next after creating a field, so that though that they know that nothing is set in stone yet, and they are able to do adjustments within the manage display context. That was the reasoning and the thought behind the choice here.
The the text we came up with, I think, is pretty clear. The first sentence emphasizes that the different formats um, change what is stored in the database. So I'm inclined to stick with what we have, and I think you are too.
Yeah.
All right, so let's
Or
go back
may
to those.
the only question I would ask is what Laurie meant with the concept solutions.
Right. Uh, Yeah, I'm also confused by that. Um, okay, so let's go back to
Yeah,
the open threads that we skipped. All right, so here's the last one we already
yeah.
discussed. And here's the first one from Lowry. So entity reference item. And he's asking about the line, any content or configuration can be referenced. So let's find that in context.
It's in the other at the bottom.
Yes. And if we do select this and go on to the next screen, um, we have this rather large dropdown. Not great user interface, but that's out of scope for this issue. Um, whereas, as far as I know, this has every sort of content entity under content, and every sort of configuration entity is listed under configuration. And I think we've agreed in past meetings that none of us has ever used a reference to a configuration entity, but the options are there. Um, so anyway, if we go back, um, so sort of part of the goal of this help text is to save people the trouble of going forward through the screens to figure out which option they want. Um, and sort of that's the theme of this bit of help text. And what exactly did Larry say about it? Do we need this line? It seems unnecessary and potentially confusing, since if you pick other, the content slash config would be still limited by the selection on the next screen. So I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to look at the code to see whether what I suggested before is accurate, that any config entity and any content entity can be referenced. Um, so maybe there are some limits there.
Yeah, but
If it's inaccurate, then I would be inclined to remove it. Go ahead.
the idea was basically at the moment and before that, before we changed it to any content or configuration can be referenced, it was just referencing content. And the idea was simply to surface the concept of that reference fields are also capable of adding configuration.
Right? In case someone someday has a use case for
Yeah,
that.
indeed.
Um,
Yeah, but it has to be sort of surfaced and keeping it under the hood in air quotes. It should be reflected in the UX copy from my perspective.
right. I guess it's a question of discoverability.
Yeah,
Um, okay. So I think we can reply to that and see what he says. Um, Boolean item.
that's just the first
Whoops.
on the first page. Yeah,
That's right.
there's no
And we
options.
just say true or false value. And he agrees that's an improvement over the previous, like we've removed the words field to store A. Um, should we consider rewriting this in a less technical language? Both Boolean and true/false strike as technical in comparison to the other options we provide. And then he says this doesn't have to block this issue if we can't think of an easy way to do this. We are not making this any worse in this issue. So he agrees that it's an improvement, but he's hoping for further improvement by making the language less technical. And I guess my first reaction is what could be less technical than true or false? But
Yeah.
let's spend a minute or two
Boolean is technical.
trying to think of something better. And my wife, who overhears my half of the conversation, agrees that Boolean is technical
Yep.
and true or false is less technical.
Yep.
Um,
True or false is sort of a technical connotation for someone with a development con in a development context, but also for someone non-technical, true or false is still clear from my perspective. So,
right. And I think if we look at how it's actually implemented in the database, possibly there are differences for different databases, but at least with MySQL, I think it's actually stored as a small int, either 0 or 1.
yeah,
Um, and we could say that it's stored as a 0 or 1. But that's sort of making it more technical, not less technical. Um, True or false value? What could be simpler than that? What could be less technical? We could say yes or no rather than true or false. Um, we are sort of limited because it appears on this top level selection list. It's not part of the category with other things. We don't have the option of the extended description that we have for other field types.
yep, agreed.
It would be nice if we could give examples.
And there's also the other point by making it sort of less technical, you make it even more potentially confusing for more technical and more tech-savvy people the other way around. So that shouldn't be forgotten as well, because make everything easier and move away from sort of terminology that people need to know anyway in that context.
And of course, this is not a screen that's seen by content editors, for example. This is a screen that's seen by site builders.
Yep.
Um, I guess we do want to keep it short, but there are already several of them that wrap to a second line at this screen width.
Yep.
Um, so we could put in some examples.
But adding an example here would break with all the other field types we have. Examples were only so far on the options page.
Right. Okay, so I think we've done our due diligence. We've tried our best to respond to that. And I think we will just reply rather than consider further changes. On to the next one.
Yeah. Or we could at least we could go with a suggestion of opening a follow-up issue if someone is capable to come up with a better option instead in the future. But for now,
I I don't feel like doing even that much. There
yeah.
are enough ignored issues on Drupal.org. We don't need to add another one.
Also true.
Okay, so here's one on the timestamp item. So we go to do date and time. So he thinks we chose the wrong example here, and I think he's right on this. So I think our intention was for these examples to be the release date of Drupal 1.0. And I think we got it off by a day. I'm not sure how we ended up there,
Oh, okay.
but there are a couple of ways you can check. Wikipedia says the initial release was January 15th, 2001, not the 14th. If you look at the source code and look at the 1.0 tag, that tag was made on January 15th, 2001, not the 14th. So I think
Oh,
Lowry is right, and we were just off by a day.
oh, okay.
So
But
go ahead.
but then we would have not only have to change the timestamp, but also the other examples.
Right. And I think the next few open threads on this merge request are
Ah, okay.
for the others.
Missed that.
So yeah, excuse me, I have to deal with another window that just popped up. Um, so I think that's right. I checked that. Well, I suppose for the sake of the recording, I can always um, Epic something should find this. If I
Unix
plug in,
timestamp.com. Yeah.
if I plug in what he suggested, that is Monday, January 15th. I'm not sure why 12:28:05, or that's in my time zone. In UTC 5:28:05. But perhaps he had a reason for that. And it's certainly better than something that evaluates to January 14th, which is what we currently have. So I think we can just accept that suggestion. And then he also comments on the date time item where he's changing January 14th to January 15th. Um,
Does he have the daytime range? Yeah, yes, it
yeah,
was.
I think he
As well.
does.
Yeah.
And that's the next one, date time range.
Yeah. Choose. But he also changed slightly the wording, hasn't he?
The
No.
suggested change is just this short section down here. We changed the wording
It's from us. Okay, okay, okay. I've misread.
Yes. So here I'll scroll a little bit so we see just the
Yeah,
suggested change.
those are
Um,
all fine.
so for date time range, we took standard working hours, at least in the US, 9 o'clock to 17 o'clock. And he wants to change it to something rather specific, suggesting January 15th, 7:28:08 to another date, March 15th at 11:24:15.
Mhm.
So I can ask about that. I assume there's some reason behind those particular choices. Um, but I can also just um, accept the suggestion.
I have no strong opinion about that. All is fine, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah,
So yeah,
still, if there's a meaning and some Easter egg also behind those, would be interesting to know for sure. But
um, right. If I hover over the date in the GitLab, it gives me a more precise timestamp. It's 12:28:05 Eastern time, which is 5:28:05 UTC.
yeah, that's the
So,
one he's using there.
well, it's not the one he's using
On
for the
the
date time
date time
range.
item, he used it. He's using it.
Yes, and when we converted his suggested timestamp, it came to 5:28:05.
Yeah.
So, so I'm just questioning the date time range changes. It's possible that March 15th was 1.1 or 2.0 or some other release. But let's go on. List string item. And Larry and Derek both agree that it is not important to say that by default the value saved in the database is the lowercase version of the value. So it's this line that they're um, suggesting we remove. So is this something we want to push back on?
I'm just trying to remember what our reasoning was back then.
Here, I think I remember. So I'm first going to create this field.
Yeah,
And I think I'll,
it basically explains the table there.
right. Oh yes, and this is another out of scope. I don't like this user interface. Um, so let me add another item. And so the machine name shows up below. Let's see, what were the other examples? I think maybe
Black
black
cherry.
cherry.
Black cherry with a space in between.
Yes. So space gets converted to an underscore, uppercase characters get converted to lowercase. And I think part of the reason we put that in was to emphasize that that is just a default. It's possible to change it because this text is easy to miss. You can change it, although it's buggy.
But luckily, there's the principle of hope. Oof, that looks awkward.
It is awkward. Um, so maybe I'll just save that as it is to get my Zoom windows out of the way. There we go. We discussed this earlier and agreed to take Derek's third example, add it, and to put the machine names in single quotes for consistency. So I guess this point serves a couple of purposes. It says, yes, you can change it. And it also says that there is a default value.
Yeah.
You don't have to enter separately. Remember in the old days when we just had a text area and you would type in the value and the label separated by a pipe character. Um, so you don't need to supply a machine name, a value. You can go with the default. And there's also the confusion that instead of calling it label and value, it is called machine name.
Yeah, that might be the only slightly confusing detail here on second look, that the selection list, the description for the option says the value is based on the name, but then is basically the concept of machine name, which functions as the value.
Right. Instead of using label and name, this screen uses name and machine name.
Yeah. But if you look at the top in the table header, you have allowed values.
Yes.
So you have basically three concepts. You have the value, you have the name, and you have the machine name.
So I'm inclined to reply to this and suggest that we keep it.
Yeah. The one thing I'm sure about is that I would oppose the it doesn't seem important enough because I consider it important to provide some context again for the next step. But still, to the point I made before, it is slightly confusing referring here to value based on name, and on the next page you have the concept of machine name
Right. And
functioning.
I think this should be changed to be consistent with what goes before. Um, but not as part of this issue.
Yeah. But definitely that the description that line I consider important. And if you compare it with Vintage. Values are whole numbers. No, that's okay. That's okay. Just thought that something would be missing on the integer end, but no, it is not. So
So we can reply there and give our reasoning. And so we must be getting near the end. Telephone item. Oh, I'm going to have to enable the telephone module. And I'm doing that in terminal window that I'm not sharing. And Larry asks, why are we describing how the telephone is stored here? So let me field type. I didn't have to reload the page. Oops.
it's on the first
Telephone
step.
number stored as a plain string. And
If you
we
take a
had
look on
to,
the left, you have also email. That is what Derek is referring to. We are doing it here as well.
yes. And let's see, I'm afraid of losing my place, so I'm going to duplicate this tab and then follow the link to the other comment that Derek is referring to. I'm going through in reverse order this time.
There it
That
is.
was
Yeah, there it was. See also
so.
comment. If you scroll down slightly a bit, there it is. See also comment number.
Yeah, but this is about
Oh, that's oh something different.
this
Okay,
is about date times.
then it's one above. There it is.
Yeah. Okay, so now place again. You can scroll to that comment, which seems to have been collapsed.
Uh,
So let's see, this is what file is being edited here. Telephone item. Ah, gee, how did I end up here? Date time, field UI, file. Is there a separate email module? So maybe I'm just having maybe I'm just not good at navigating GitLab, but I can't find uh the link that Derek is referring to.
I think I found it. Is it email? At least for the email one, I just have to find how I'm able to copy a link.
Oh,
Try the following in the chat.
I did have the chat window open.
Uh, it isn't expand.
What if we expand all threads?
Then look for and search for stored as.
Let me first try to reload with that anchor. Nope. Let's look for stored. Not found.
And it hasn't expanded all the threads.
Anyway, let's not dig
Yeah.
further into this rabbit hole. I think the answer is that instead of giving a link, we should repeat the explanation of why we do that. And if I remember correctly, the reason is that given Drupal's love of structured content, you might think that a telephone number would be stored as some sort of structured data, the country code, the area code, the exchange and the extension, and you'd be able to format that to your heart's desire. You could put the area code in parentheses if you prefer, or you could just use dashes. In fact, none of that is true. The telephone number is stored as a plain string, and you don't have a lot of formatting options.
Yep.
And we thought that was useful information to give. So I think rather than giving links to comments, um, it'll be easier if we just repeat that explanation. Um, Field type categories,
It's again date and time.
right? But now
Mm.
looking at what comes up on this page, right? Where we just say a date and or time value. Is that what
Um,
he's?
It's basically the thing. No, that's the thing we've discussed before. That is the one
Oh,
in the context we had with Derek, with the help text on top, the second sentence.
right. So have we actually wrapped around and gotten to the first? No, we haven't, because the first comment will be one of Derek's. I would admit manage display here just to be more compatible with contrib solutions. Derek agrees. Did we already discuss this?
Yeah, we talked about it.
I think
That's
it's just
the one thread I suggested to see Laurie's answer as well, because we were already in the context of that one, where I've asked you if we could go down there and use discuss that first.
yeah, I think that the navigation has gotten confused. All right, just going to page through until I get to the the not email, but
The last one is the one about numbers with fixed accuracy.
telephone item. This is the last one we were looking at when we tried to follow this link without
Oh yeah.
much success. Um, okay, so these links aren't working for me, so I will copy the explanation there. What's next?
Yeah, that's the one we've discussed already.
Okay. Oh, yes, and we discussed this out of order because you
Yeah,
wanted to. Okay.
because I wanted to stay in context with Derek's. And now the
Okay.
one is about the number field.
Um, so let's look at the number options. We only have 5 minutes left.
And it's the last thread.
Okay, and it's the line numbers with
Yeah.
fixed accuracy. And he asks, is this the best way to contrast this against integers? This seems more relevant when comparing against floats, which is no longer displayed in the UI. He's right about that. And I think actually um, we probably chose this text before float was removed from the user interface.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, on a side
so,
note, um, for integer number without decimal parts or fractions is singular, while for decimal we use the plural form, just in regards of consistency.
oh, yes, good point. So what if we change this to number with integer and decimal parts? To change numbers to number at the same time. Forgot to. So do you think
Um,
that's an improvement?
yes and no. The direction is good, but there's one detail. Me as a non-native speaker, it sounds confusing. A number with integer and decimal parts. Would it make sense to make it align to the first sentence of the for the integer with number without decimal parts or fractions and simply say number with decimal parts.
If you think that's clear, then I think that's okay because the examples make it clear that you are allowed to have something to the left of the decimal point as well. So if you just make it here with decimal parts, shall we go with that?
Just one question is decimal parts as plural means with the example a decimal part is the two with the example 1.23 is a decimal part the two, another decimal part is the three then, or is the
No,
decimal
you're
part the 2.23?
it's the part everything after the decimal point. So yeah, it was plural because I was saying integer and decimal parts,
Okay.
but I should have that number with decimal part with a decimal part.
But then would we have to adjust the first line for integer as well and make it also singular without decimal part or fractions?
Yeah, I think we should. Decimal
You
part singular
you're
or
the expert
fraction
here.
singular as the native English speaker, yes. Okay,
Mhm.
can we go with that?
Yeah, looks good.
And we are at the end of the hour. And let's see, you said that we had gotten through the 12 open threads. Yes, this is scrolling back to the start. Good. So I
Oof.
will reply to several of those and I'll make the changes to the date and time fields that Larry suggested. And I'll change the last one we were talking about, decimal.
Decimal, and there was another one, and the example from Derek with the portrait modes.
Yes.
And yeah, those two, yeah, the portrait mode example and on the number field for the options. So those were the two. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hopefully that was the last discussion about that issue.
It would that be nice if it actually got committed before the end of the year and there's still a couple of weeks left to make that happen.
That would be a nice Christmas present or belated Christmas present. And one thing is, we probably should also open up a follow-up issue about the air quotes style guide rules for contrib modules so that they align with the few rules we've applied mainly on the first page as well as on the second step. So that is something I can open that on the weekend.
Okay.
But that is, I think, important because otherwise for core it looks consistent and that should probably linked or added in a change record, but it should be both a dedicated page as well as a change record.
Okay.
So that contrib aligns and knows which rules to follow. Okay, anyway. Thank you and have a relaxed weekend.
Thank you. And we'll still deciding whether to have a meeting next week, the day
Yeah.
after Christmas. If it is just the two of us, then maybe we'll skip it.
Yep. Yep. Okay, doke. Bye bye.